Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the strange planet grow larger on the main screen. The world below looked nothing like Earth. Red dust covered everything, and massive crystal formations jutted up from the ground like broken teeth. After 3 months of deep space travel, they had finally reached Kepler 442b. "Scans are coming in now, Captain," said Dr. Lisa Brooks from her science station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as data flowed across her screen. The atmosphere is breathable, but thin. Gravity is about 80% of Earth normal. And those crystal formations, they're giving off some kind of energy signature. Jake nodded and turned to his engineer. "What do you think, Sam? Safe to land?" Sam Carter looked up from his console, pushing his glasses up his nose. "The energy readings are stable, Captain. Whatever those crystals are doing, they've been doing it for a long time. I'd say we're good to go." Amy Walsh, the communications officer, spun around in her chair. "I'm not picking up any signals from the surface. No radio, no subspace, nothing. If there's anyone down there, they're not talking." Jake made his decision. "All right, people. We came here to explore, so let's explore. Lisa, Sam, you're with me. Amy, you stay here and monitor everything. If something goes wrong, get us out of here fast." "Understood, Captain," Amy replied, already turning back to her station. The landing. Shuttle touched down near the largest crystal formation they could see from orbit. As the 3 crew members stepped out, Jake felt a strange tingling in the air. The crystals were huge up close, some reaching over 100 feet into the sky. They pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to follow no pattern. "Incredible," Lisa whispered, pulling out her scanner. "These crystals are older than anything we've ever found. The dating shows they're at least 50,000 years old, maybe older." Sam knelt down next to one of the smaller crystals and ran his hand along its surface. "It's warm and smooth, like it was carved by hand. But who could have made these?" As they walked deeper into the crystal field, Jake noticed something odd. The formations weren't random. They formed patterns, almost like they were arranged on purpose. "Lisa, are you seeing this? These crystals, they're not natural, are they?" "No, Captain. Definitely artificial. And there's something else." She pointed her scanner at the largest crystal. "There are hollow spaces inside, like rooms or chambers." The team spent the next hour searching for a way inside. It was Sam who found it first. "Over here. There's some kind of opening, but it's sealed." Jake and Lisa hurried over to where Sam was standing. The opening was covered by a smooth panel made of the same crystal material. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols that seemed to shift and change when they weren't looking directly at them. "Can you read any of this?" Jake asked Lisa. She shook her head. "It's not like any language I've ever seen. But ... She reached out and touched one of the symbols. The moment her finger made contact, the entire panel began to glow. The 3 humans jumped back as the panel dissolved into light, revealing a passage into the crystal. Cool air flowed out, carrying with it a scent that reminded Jake of ozone. After a thunderstorm. "Well," Sam said, adjusting his equipment back, "I guess we're going in." The passage led downward, carved from the same crystal material as the exterior. Soft light emanated from the walls themselves, providing just enough illumination to see. The air grew warmer as they descended, and Jake could hear a low humming sound coming from somewhere ahead. They emerged into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. But what caught their attention were the walls. They were covered in moving images, like 3-dimensional movies playing on loop. "Holograms," Lisa breathed. But the technology required to maintain them for 50,000 years. The images showed scenes of space battles, but not like anything they had ever seen. Massive ships moved through the void, firing weapons that tore holes in reality itself. And the ships' designs were strangely familiar. "Those ships," Sam said, pointing at the display. "They look almost human." Jake studied the images more closely. The ships did have a human aesthetic to them, but they were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. As they watched, the scene changed, showing planets being conquered, entire star systems falling to the human-like fleet. "There's more over here." Amy's voice crackled through their communicators. "I'm reading massive data uploads to your location." "What did you find down there?" "Something impossible," Jake replied. "We're looking at what appears to be a historical record of some kind, and it shows humans as ... well, as conquerors." The holographic display shifted again, this time showing Earth. But not the Earth they knew. This Earth was surrounded by a massive space station network, with ships coming and going like a busy highway. Then the scene changed to show other worlds, all bearing the same human architecture. Lisa's scanner beeped urgently. "Captain, I'm picking up new activity from the crystals." "Something's happening." Before Jake could respond, the chamber filled with a new hologram. This one was different from the others. It showed a council of alien beings, their faces twisted with fear and anger. At the center of their discussion was a projection of a human figure, but this human looked different somehow. More intimidating, more dangerous. "Can you make out what they're saying?" Jake asked. Lisa worked frantically with her scanner, trying to decode the audio. After several minutes, she looked up with shock on her face. "Captain, I think I've got it. They're talking about humans, but not as we know ourselves. They're calling us ... war gods." The hologram shifted to show the alien council making some kind of decision. They activated a device that sent waves of energy toward Earth. The projection of the human figure screamed silently as the energy hit, and then ... changed. The dangerous look faded from the human's eyes, replaced by something peaceful and confused. "They did something to us," Sam whispered. "These aliens, they changed us somehow." The final hologram showed Earth being enclosed in some kind of energy field, while the human space stations went dark one by one. The last image was of the crystal chamber itself, with a warning message appearing in symbols that slowly shifted into readable text. "The seal weakens with each generation," Lisa read aloud. "Should it break completely, the war gods will remember their true nature. What we have done was necessary, but it cannot last forever. When the children of Earth reclaim their birthright, the galaxy will tremble once more." The three humans stood in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe was wrong. They weren't peaceful explorers who had recently discovered space travel. They were descendants of galactic conquerors who had been somehow neutered and contained. "We need to get this information back to Earth," Jake said finally. "People need to know the truth." As they prepared to leave the chamber, Sam noticed something else. "Captain, look at this. There's more text here." Jake and Lisa gathered around as Sam read the final message. "The seal is breaking. The children feel it in their dreams. Soon, they will remember what they truly are. And when they do, those who bound them will pay the price for their mistake." The chamber suddenly filled with alarms, and Amy's voice crackled through their communicators with urgency. "Captain, we've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, and they're heading straight for us." Jake grabbed his team and ran for the exit. As they climbed back through the crystal passage, he could hear the sound of the alien ship's engines growing louder. Whatever those ships were, their timing was not a coincidence. They reached the surface just as the first ship landed nearby. It was sleek and silver, with designs that matched the alien council from the holograms. Jake recognized the species immediately from the historical records. They were Zorethians, one of the races that had sealed humanity. "They're here to destroy the evidence," Lisa said, clutching her scanner with the recorded data. "They can't let this information get out." Jake activated his communicator. "Amy, emergency takeoff now. We need to get this data to Earth before they stop us." The New Horizons engines roared to life as the alien ships opened fire. Jake and his team ran for their shuttle as energy beams scorched the ground around them. They barely made it aboard before the shuttle lifted off, racing toward their ship dot as they fled the planet's atmosphere. Jake watched the Zorethian ships destroy the crystal formations with their weapons, but it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no stopping it now. "Amy, transmit everything we found to Earth," Jake ordered. "Use all channels, emergency protocols. This information needs to reach as many people as possible." "Already on it, Captain," Amy replied. Signal sent and confirmed received by Earth Command. As the New Horizon jumped to hyperspace, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had just changed the course of human history. The sealed war gods were about to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same. Behind them, the Zorethian ships gave chase, but they were too late. The fatal mistake had already been made. The truth was spreading across human space, and with it, the first stirrings of humanity's true nature began to awaken. Colonel Ryan Hayes woke up screaming. The nightmare had been so real, he could still taste the metal and smoke in his mouth. He had been commanding a fleet of ships unlike anything humanity had ever built, fighting enemies that moved through space like living shadows. His tactical knowledge in the dream had been perfect, almost supernatural. He had known exactly where each enemy ship would move before they did it themselves. Ryan sat up in his bunk aboard the Mars Colony military station, sweat dripping down his face. This was the 5th night in a row he had experienced the same type of dream. Each time, the visions became clearer and more detailed. In tonight's dream, he had been using weapons that bent space itself, turning enemy ships inside out with a thought. "Computer, what time is it?" he asked the room's AI system. "Oh, 347 hours, Colonel Hayes. You have been asleep for approximately 2 hours." Ryan rubbed his eyes. 2 hours felt like a lifetime. In his dreams, he had lived through months of space battles, learning tactics that made current military doctrine look like child's play. He got up and walked to his desk, where reports from Earth Command were waiting for him. The reports made his blood run cold. The discovery on Kepler 442b was spreading through human space faster than anyone had expected. But more disturbing were the secondary reports. All across human colonies, people were experiencing similar dreams. Military personnel, engineers, even civilians were reporting nightmares of ancient battles and forgotten technologies. Ryan's communication panel buzzed. "Colonel, this is General Patricia Stone on Earth. We need to talk immediately." Ryan activated the secure channel. General Stone's face appeared on his screen, looking older than he remembered. "General, I received the reports. Is it true? Are people really having the same dreams?" "It's worse than that, Ryan. People aren't just dreaming. They're changing. Dr. Kate Sullivan at the Genetic Research Institute has been monitoring the situation. She says that human DNA is literally rewriting itself. The changes started the moment the transmission from the New Horizon reached Earth." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of changes? Enhanced problem-solving abilities, improved reflexes, increased pattern recognition. And that's just the beginning. Some people are displaying knowledge they shouldn't have. Engineers are designing technologies that don't exist yet. Soldiers are developing tactics that our best military minds can't understand. As if to prove her point, Ryan's mind suddenly filled with the solution to a logistics problem that had been bothering Mars Colony for months. He could see exactly how to reorganize their supply lines to increase efficiency by 40%. The knowledge came from nowhere, as if it had always been there, waiting. "General," Ryan said slowly, "I think it's happening to me too. That's why I'm calling you. Earth Command is putting together a special task force to study this phenomenon. We need people who are experiencing the changes firsthand. You're being reassigned to Earth immediately." 3 days later, Ryan stood in the genetics lab at the Earth Command facility, watching Dr. Kate Sullivan examine his blood samples under a microscope. She was a small woman with intense eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Fascinating," she murmured, adjusting the equipment. "Colonel, your genetic structure is completely different from what it was a week ago. Sections of your DNA that were dormant are now active. It's like someone turned on switches that had been turned off for thousands of years." "What does that mean, exactly?" Ryan asked. Dr. Sullivan turned to face him, her expression serious. "It means that whoever our ancestors were, they weren't the peaceful explorers we thought they were. The genetic markers I'm seeing suggest enhanced combat abilities, improved tactical thinking, and most importantly, rapid adaptation to new technologies." She led him to another room where several other people were gathered. Ryan recognized some of them from the reports. It was Ben Rodriguez, a mining engineer who had somehow designed a new type of drill that could cut through solid rock like butter. Maria Santos, a communications specialist who had figured out how to boost signal strength by methods that shouldn't work according to current physics. And Captain Jake Morrison himself, who had just arrived from his mission. "Welcome to the awakening," Dr. Sullivan said to the group. "What you're all experiencing is the breakdown of genetic locks that have been in place for approximately 50,000 years. Based on the data from Kepler 442b, it appears that an alien coalition modified human DNA to suppress our natural abilities." Ben Rodriguez raised his hand. "Doc, you're saying that humans used to be more advanced than we are now?" "That doesn't make sense. Our technology has been improving steadily for centuries." "That's exactly what I'm saying," Dr. Sullivan replied. "Think about it. Every other species we've encountered has technologies that are thousands of years ahead of ours. The Veilthara, the Zorathians, the Kithric Empire, they all have faster-than-light travel, energy shields, weapons that can destroy planets. We've been struggling to catch up. But what if we weren't supposed to be catching up? What if we were supposed to be ahead?" Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Doctor, in those holographic records, the humans shown were clearly the dominant species in the galaxy. Their technology was beyond anything we've seen. But if that's true, what happened to it all?" "It was taken away," Dr. Sullivan said simply. "The genetic modifications didn't just suppress our abilities. They erased our memories, our knowledge, everything that made us the war gods the aliens feared. We were reset to a primitive state and allowed to slowly redevelop, but only along paths that the alien coalition considered safe." Ryan felt something click in his mind. "But the seals are breaking now. That's why we're all changing." "Exactly. And the process is accelerating. Every day, more people are awakening. The genetic changes are spreading through the population like a virus. Within months, possibly weeks, the entire human species will be transformed." Maria Santos spoke up. "What about the aliens, the ones who did this to us? Are they just going to sit back and watch us change?" Before Dr. Sullivan could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red as the base's AI system announced, "Warning. Unidentified ships detected in Earth orbit. All personnel, report to emergency stations." The group rushed to the command center, where screens showed the impossible. 3 massive alien ships hung in space above Earth, their sleek designs clearly not human. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, with hulls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Valthara ships, Captain Morrison said. Grimly, I recognized the design from the historical records. General Stone's voice crackled over the communication system. All stations, this is Earth Command. We are being hailed by the lead vessel. They're requesting immediate communication with what they call the Awakened Ones. Ryan felt his tactical mind analyzing the situation automatically. The alien ships were positioned perfectly to blockade Earth's major space lanes. Their weapons were trained on the planet's surface, but not actively targeting anything. This was a show of force, not an attack. Put them through, Dr. Sullivan said. We need to know what they want. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to contain ancient wisdom. When it spoke, its voice was melodious, but carried an undertone of fear. I am High Chancellor Vex Thara of the Velthara Collective. We have come to speak with those humans who have begun to remember their true nature. What you call the awakening was never supposed to happen. The genetic seals were designed to last forever. General Stone stepped forward. I'm General Stone, representing Earth Command. What do you want? We want to prevent a catastrophe, Vextara replied. 50,000 years ago, your species nearly destroyed the galaxy. You were unstoppable in war, adapting to any weapon, any tactic, any technology, faster than it could be deployed against you. We had no choice but to contain you. Ryan felt anger building in his chest, but it was different from normal anger. This was colder, more focused. You had no right to change us, to steal our memories, our abilities, our identity. We had every right, Vexthara said, its voice hardening. Your species conquered 3/4 of the galaxy. Entire civilizations were wiped out. Billions died because humans could not be stopped or reasoned with. You were war gods, and war gods care nothing for the lives of lesser beings. Dr. Sullivan stepped closer to the screen. That was 50,000 years ago. We're not the same species anymore. We've learned compassion, cooperation, exploration instead of conquest. Have you? Vexthara asked. Already we detect changes in your military formations. Your ships are being modified in ways that shouldn't be possible. Your weapons research has advanced decades in mere days. The war gods are awakening, and when they fully remember what they are, the galaxy will burn again. Captain Morrison crossed his arms. So what do you propose? That we let you keep us locked in a cage? That we pretend we don't know the truth? We propose a new arrangement. Join the Galactic Council as equals. Share your technologies peacefully. Help us maintain order in the galaxy. In exchange, we will help you control the awakening process. The genetic changes can be slowed, managed, made safe. Ryan felt his tactical mind racing through possibilities. The offer sounded. War Master Krextar of the Zorathian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vengeance of Stars, watching the human colony world of New Geneva grow larger on the view screen. The planet looked peaceful enough, with its blue oceans and green continents, but Krextar knew better. Intelligence reports showed that humans were changing, awakening to their true nature. The time for negotiation was over. Status report, he commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. All battle groups are in position, War Master, replied his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Yexhai. 47 ships of the line, plus support vessels. The humans have only 12 ships in the system, mostly cargo haulers and civilian transports. Krextar nodded, satisfied. The human colony had grown comfortable over the years, protected by the galaxy's peace treaties. They had no idea what was coming. What about their defense platforms? Minimal orbital defenses. Standard civilian-grade shields and weapons. Nothing that can stand against our firepower. The War Master studied the tactical display. New Geneva was humanity's largest colony outside of Earth, home to over 50 million people. It was a symbol of human expansion into space, and destroying it would send a clear message to the rest of their species. The war gods would learn that awakening came with a price. Begin the attack, Krextar ordered. Target their orbital platforms first, then move on to the surface installations. Leave the civilian areas for last. I want them to know what's coming. The Zarathian fleet opened fire with precision that had been perfected over centuries of warfare. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the human orbital platforms with devastating effect. The platform's shields held for mere seconds before collapsing, and the structures themselves were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. On the surface of New Geneva, alarm sirens began wailing as the first explosions bloomed in the sky above. People ran for shelters that had been built more out of regulation than necessity. No one had ever expected the colony to actually be attacked, but as the Zorathian ships moved closer to the planet, something unexpected happened. The 12 human ships in the system, instead of fleeing or surrendering, began to form up into a defensive formation. Their movements were different from standard human fleet doctrine, more fluid and aggressive. War Master, Sub-Commander Yexhai, reported, "The human ships are approaching our position. They're not retreating." Krextar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. 12 ships against 47? They're either very brave or very stupid. Either way, they'll be dead in minutes. The human fleet was led by a converted cargo vessel that had been hastily refitted with weapons. On its bridge, Captain Jake Morrison felt something fundamental shift inside his mind. The moment the Zorathian weapons had fired on human civilians, a barrier in his consciousness had shattered completely. Knowledge flooded into his brain. Not just tactical knowledge, but deep, instinctive understanding of warfare that went beyond anything he had learned in the military academy. He could see the enemy formation spread out before him and instantly understood its weaknesses. "All ships, this is Morrison," he broadcast to his small fleet. "Form up in pattern Delta 7 and prepare for engagement." "Sir," replied the captain of the mining vessel Prospector, "we don't have a pattern Delta 7 in our tactical database." "You do now," Morrison said, and somehow he knew it was true. The formation existed in his mind as clearly as if he had studied it for years. "Trust me and follow my lead." The human ships moved into a formation that shouldn't have worked according to conventional space warfare. They spread out in a complex pattern that looked random, but was actually precisely calculated. Each ship was positioned to support the others while maximizing their limited firepower. On the Zarathian flagship, Krextar watched the human formation with growing unease. "What are they doing? That formation doesn't match any human tactical doctrine in our files." "Unknown, War Master. But they're maintaining course and speed. They're actually attacking us." The first exchange of fire should have been decisive. The Zorathian ships had superior weapons, better armor, and overwhelming numbers. But something went wrong. The human ships moved like they could predict where the Zorathian shots would be, dodging and weaving through the enemy fire with impossible precision. Morrison's mind was operating on a level he had never experienced before. He could see the battle unfolding in slow motion, every enemy movement telegraphed seconds before it happened. His tactical awareness had expanded beyond the purely physical. He was thinking in dimensions that normal humans couldn't perceive. "Prospector, adjust heading by 15 degrees and fire on my mark," he ordered. "New Shanghai, swing around and target their communications array. Everyone else, follow the pattern." The human ships executed maneuvers that violated basic physics, turning and accelerating in ways that should have torn them apart. But they held together, driven by modifications that their engineers had made during the battle itself. Sam Carter, now aboard Morrison's ship, was frantically rewiring systems even as the battle raged around them. "Captain, I'm rerouting power from life support to weapons," Sam reported. "I don't know how I know this will work, but it will." The modifications worked better than they had any right to. The human ship's weapons began hitting with devastating accuracy, targeting weak points in the Zorathian ships, defenses that shouldn't have been visible to human sensors. Krex Star watched in horror as 3 of his ships were destroyed in the first few minutes of combat. How is this possible? They're using technology that doesn't exist in their database. War Master, we're receiving damage reports from all battle groups. The humans are targeting our shield generators with impossible precision. They're fighting like they know our ship designs better than we do. The truth was even more disturbing. The awakening humans weren't just remembering their old knowledge. They were adapting and improving it in real time. Every time the Zorathians changed tactics, the humans countered with something new. Morrison felt his consciousness expanding further. He was no longer just commanding one ship, but coordinating the entire human fleet as if it were a single organism. He could feel the other captains' minds connecting with his, sharing tactical information at the speed of thought. "All ships, execute Pattern Omega," he ordered, and somehow every captain knew exactly what he meant. The human ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in all directions, only to converge on the Zorathian fleet from impossible angles. They were using the gravitational field of the planet itself to alter their trajectories, turning space itself into a weapon. On New Geneva's surface, people watched in amazement as the battle unfolded above them. The human ships moved like living things, dancing through the enemy formation with grace and deadly precision. But what was most shocking was seeing their own cargo haulers and mining vessels tear apart military ships that had been built for War. Dr. Lisa Brooks, now stationed at the colony's research center, monitored the genetic changes occurring in the population. "It's accelerating beyond all predictions," she reported to Earth Command. The moment the first shot was fired, the awakening process went into overdrive. The entire human species is transforming simultaneously. The effect was felt across all human space. On Earth, soldiers reported sudden understanding of advanced tactics they had never studied. Engineers began designing weapons that existed only in theory. Even civilians felt the change as dormant instincts awakened in their minds. The battle above New Geneva had become a rout. The Zorathian fleet, despite its overwhelming advantages, was being systematically destroyed by 12 human ships that had been modified during the fight itself. Krekstar watched his tactical display with growing terror as ship after ship went dark. "War Master, we must retreat," Sub-Commander Yexhai urged. "We've lost over half our fleet, the humans. They're not human anymore. They're something else." But Krekstar was beyond reason. The proud Zorathian Empire had never been defeated by an inferior force. All ships, concentrate fire on the planet's surface. If we can't defeat their ships, we'll destroy what they're protecting. The order was the War Master's fatal mistake. The moment Zorathian weapons began targeting civilian areas on New Geneva, something fundamental broke in the human genetic structure. Not just in the fleet above, but in every human throughout the galaxy. Morrison felt it happen like a dam bursting. In his mind, all the remaining barriers fell away, and he remembered everything. Not just his own memories, but the racial memories of humanity's true nature. He was no longer Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Exploration Fleet. He was something far older and far more dangerous. The transformation was visible even to the Zorathians. The human ships began to change, their hulls shifting and adapting as their crews modified them with knowledge that had been sealed away for millennia. Weapons that had never existed before materialized on their hulls. Shields that bent space itself sprang to life around them. My God, Dr. Brooks whispered from the planet's surface, watching her scanners as the genetic changes peaked. They're not just awakening to their old nature. They're evolving into something new. The 12 human ships now transformed into something that transcended known technology, fell upon the remaining Zorathian fleet with merciless efficiency. The battle was off. Admiral Grace Parker stood on the bridge of the newly constructed human flagship Retribution, watching the stars through the massive view screen. 6 months had passed since the battle at New Geneva, and human space had transformed beyond recognition. What had once been peaceful colonies were now fortress worlds, bristling with weapons that bent the laws of physics. But the Retribution itself was a testament to humanity's awakened nature. Nearly 2 miles long, the ship incorporated technologies that had been impossible just months earlier. Its hull was made from materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it nearly indestructible. Its weapons could crack planets, and its engines could fold space itself. "Admiral," called out Commander Tony Martinez from the tactical station, "the Kithric delegation has arrived. They're requesting permission to come aboard." Grace nodded, though she felt no warmth toward their visitors. The Kithric Empire had been part of the coalition that sealed humanity 50,000 years ago. Now they wanted to negotiate, probably because they had seen what happened to the Zorathian fleet. "Let them come," she said, "but maintain full security protocols. And Martinez, make sure they see our weapon displays on their way to the conference room." The Kithric delegation was led by Ambassador Xylith, a tall, crystalline being whose body reflected light in patterns that indicated emotion. As they were escorted through the ship's corridors, Grace made sure they saw the modifications human engineers had made. Ben Rodriguez, now serving as humanity's chief weapons designer, had outdone himself. The ship's corridors were lined with defensive systems that could eliminate intruders at the molecular level. The walls themselves were alive with energy patterns that could be turned into shields or weapons at a moment's notice. "Impressive modifications," Ambassador Xylith said as they entered the conference room. "Your species has progressed remarkably quickly." "We've remembered what we used to be," Grace replied, taking her seat at the head of the table. "The question is whether your people are ready to deal with what that means." The conference room was designed to intimidate. The walls displayed tactical information about human fleet movements, showing the massive buildup of forces that had occurred over the past months. Admiral Parker had positioned 60 battle fleets throughout human space, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. "Admiral Parker," Xylith began, "the Kithric Empire wishes to express our regret about the actions of the Zorathian fleet. That attack was not sanctioned by the Galactic Council, but it was predictable." Grace responded coldly. "You sealed us away like dangerous animals, and when we started to wake up, the first impulse was to put us back to sleep. Permanently." Dr. Lisa Brooks, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, activated a holographic display showing the genetic changes that had occurred throughout human space. "The transformation is complete," she said. "Every human in the galaxy now has access to their original genetic capabilities. We're not just remembering the past. We're evolving beyond it." Ambassador Xylith's crystalline form flickered with what Grace recognized as fear patterns. "Admiral, we understand your anger, but you must see that the galaxy cannot survive another human expansion. Your ancestors nearly destroyed everything." "Our ancestors," Grace said, standing up slowly, "were responding to threats, just like we are now." She gestured to the tactical displays around the room. "Every move we've made has been defensive. We're building fortress worlds because you've already proven you'll attack our colonies. We're creating battle fleets because your people still think they can cage us." Commander Martinez spoke up from his station. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our deep space scouts. Large fleet movements detected in Velthara and Kithric space. It looks like they're massing for coordinated strikes. Grace felt her enhanced tactical awareness analyze the information instantly. The enemy was planning to hit multiple human systems simultaneously, probably hoping to cripple humanity's industrial capacity before the war gods could fully mobilize. "Ambassador," she said, turning back to Xylith, "it seems your people have already made their decision about negotiation." "Admiral Parker, please," Xylith said, its light patterns shifting to urgent orange. "There are factions within our governments that still fear you. But there are others who believe we can find a peaceful solution." "Peaceful?" Grace laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You had 50,000 years to find a peaceful solution. Instead, you kept us locked in a cage and hoped we'd stay there forever." The Admiral moved to the main display, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red indicators marked human systems, while blue and green showed the territories of the elder races. "Your people control 70% of the galaxy. We have less than 5%. Who exactly is the threat here?" Colonel Ryan Hayes entered the conference room, now wearing the uniform of humanity's newly created Strategic Command. His eyes held the cold calculation that had become common among awakened humans. "Admiral, our intelligence networks report that the Galactic Council is planning something called Operation Final Seal." "Final Seal?" Dr. Brooks asked, though her enhanced intellect was already analyzing the implications. "A weapon designed to permanently alter human DNA," Ryan explained. "Not just seal our abilities, but remove them entirely. Make us incapable of ever threatening their dominance again." Ambassador Xylith's form went completely transparent for a moment, a clear sign of shock. That was not supposed to be revealed. Those plans were classified at the highest levels. Grace felt something cold and deadly settle in her chest. "So much for peaceful negotiations. You brought us here to stall while your people prepare to lobotomize our entire species." "Admiral, I swear to you, I knew nothing about this," Xylith said, its patterns flickering between fear and desperation. "There are elements within our governments that act without oversight. Just like there were elements that acted without oversight 50,000 years ago?" Grace asked. "How convenient that your people always seem to have rogue elements whenever they do something genocidal." Dr. Brooks was studying the intelligence data that Ryan had provided. "Admiral, if this weapon exists and they deploy it, it could affect humans throughout the galaxy simultaneously. The genetic changes we've undergone make us more connected than we were before. A targeted attack could cascade through our entire population." Grace made her decision. "Ambassador Xylith, you will return to your people with a message. Any attempt to use this weapon against humanity will be considered an act of total war. And unlike 50,000 years ago, we're ready for you this time. Admiral, please reconsider. The galaxy cannot survive. The galaxy survived our ancestors." Grace cut him off. "It will survive us. The question is whether your civilizations will." As the Kithric delegation was escorted from the ship, Grace turned to her command staff. The weight of command had changed her over the months since the awakening. She was no longer the diplomatic officer who had once sought peaceful solutions to galactic conflicts. That person had died the moment Zorothian weapons fired on human civilians. "Ryan, what's the status of our military buildup?" "Accelerating beyond all projections, Admiral. Our engineers are producing ships and weapons using principles that shouldn't exist. Ben Rodriguez's latest designs are incorporating technologies that we don't even understand yet, but they work." Ben himself entered the conference room, carrying a device that seemed to bend light around itself. "Admiral, we've completed the prototype. The reality disruptor can tear holes in space-time itself. One shot from this weapon can collapse a star system into a singularity." Grace looked at the weapon with mixed feelings. The power was intoxicating, but she remembered what Ambassador Xylith had said about their ancestors. Had they become the same kind of threat that had forced the galaxy to seal them away? What about our defensive capabilities? She asked. Dr. Brooks activated another display. We've established shield networks around all major human systems. The technology uses quantum entanglement to create barriers that exist in multiple dimensions. Conventional weapons can't touch them. And our population? How are people handling the changes? Better than expected, Ryan reported. The awakening has brought not just military capabilities, but enhanced intelligence, improved problem-solving, and stronger community bonds. Crime rates have dropped to almost zero. People are working together with an efficiency that's frankly miraculous. Grace nodded, though part of her wondered if that cooperative behavior was just another aspect of their military nature. Were they becoming a hive mind optimized for war? Admiral, Commander Martinez called out, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Morrison. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He was now commanding humanity's home defense fleet, and like all awakened humans, he looked different. More focused, more dangerous, but also somehow more alive. Grace, we've detected massive enemy fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The Velthara, Kithric, and 3 other species are mobilizing everything they have. Intelligence suggests they're planning a coordinated strike on all human systems simultaneously. When? Grace asked. Within the week. They're calling it the Battle of Vega Prime. They plan to make their stand there, destroy our forward fleets, and then move. The Battle of Vega Prime lasted 18 hours and changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Grace Parker stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the massive enemy fleet came into view. 3,000 ships from 5 different species hung in space. Like a wall of metal and energy, their combined firepower enough to sterilize entire star systems. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, brought together for one purpose: to stop humanity from reclaiming its place as the galaxy's apex species. Admiral, Commander Tony Martinez reported, enemy fleet is moving into attack formation. They're spreading out to prevent us from using concentrated firepower tactics. Grace studied the tactical display with enhanced awareness that processed information faster than any computer. The enemy formation was perfect according to conventional military doctrine. Overlapping fields of fire, mutual support between ships, clear command and control structures. It should have been unbeatable. Dr. Brooks, are you ready with the quantum resonance transmitters? Grace asked. Lisa Brooks nodded from her science station. All 400 ships are equipped and synchronized. We can link our tactical networks across the entire fleet in real time. The quantum resonance technology was something that shouldn't have existed. Ben Rodriguez had designed it using principles that human scientists were still trying to understand. It allowed the human fleet to operate as a single organism, with each ship knowing instantly what every other ship was doing. Colonel Hayes, what's the status of our special weapons? Ryan Hayes, now commanding the fleet's tactical systems, checked his displays. Reality disruptors are charged and ready. Dimensional shields are at full power. And Admiral ... The new technology Ben developed is online. Grace felt a chill as she thought about Ben's latest creation. He called it the evolution field and claimed it could accelerate the development of any technology it touched. The implications were staggering, but they needed every advantage they could get. Open a channel to the enemy fleet, Grace ordered. Then the main screen flickered, showing the bridge of the enemy flagship. High Chancellor Vexthara of the Velthara appeared, its pale blue skin marked with patterns of anger and determination. Admiral Parker, Vexthara said, you are outnumbered more. And 7-1. Surrender now, and we will ensure your species is treated humanely during the resealing process. Resealing? Grace asked, though she already knew the answer. Operation Final Seal is ready for deployment. We have learned from our ancestors. Mistakes. This time, the genetic locks will be permanent and irreversible. Your species will become what it should have been from the beginning. Peaceful, contained, harmless. Grace felt something cold and final settle in her chest. High Chancellor, you're making the same mistake your ancestors made 50,000 years ago. You're assuming we're still the same species you sealed away. You are exactly the same, Vexthara replied. Violent, aggressive, impossible to reason with. The attack on the Zorathian fleet proved that. You destroyed them completely, showing no mercy. They fired on our civilians first, Grace said. What did you expect us to do? Accept your place in the galactic order. Some species are meant to lead, others to follow. Humans have never understood this basic truth. Grace stood up slowly, feeling the weight of her species' future on her shoulders. High Chancellor, let me explain something to you. 50,000 years ago, you sealed away humanity's warrior nature. But you made one crucial error. You assumed that was all we were. She gestured to the tactical displays showing the human fleet. We weren't just warriors. We were innovators, adapters, survivors. And while you've spent the last 50 millennia stagnating in your comfortable civilizations, we've been evolving. Empty words, Vexthara said. Begin the attack. All ships, destroy the human fleet. The enemy fleet opened fire with weapons that could crack planets. Energy beams capable of boiling oceans lanced through space toward the human ships. By all rights, the human fleet should have been vaporized in the opening seconds of the battle. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. Phase shift successful, Dr. Brooks reported calmly. All ships are operating in dimensional space. Enemy weapons cannot target us while we remain shifted. Grace smiled grimly. The phase shift technology was another of Ben Rodriguez's innovations, allowing ships to exist slightly outside normal spacetime. They could observe and attack the enemy, but couldn't be touched in return. All ships, begin attack pattern Omega, Grace ordered. The human fleet materialized inside the enemy formation, having bypassed their shields and defensive lines entirely. But instead of using conventional weapons, they deployed Ben's evolution field generators. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Enemy ships began to malfunction as their technology was forced to evolve beyond their ability to control it. Weapons. Systems turned against their own ships. Navigation computers began plotting courses to impossible destinations. Life support systems evolved into something that couldn't support the alien crew members. What are you doing to us? Vexthara screamed over the communication link. Teaching you the same lesson you taught us, Grace replied. Evolution doesn't stop just because you want it to. But the human attack was more sophisticated than simple technological disruption. Dr. Brooks had discovered that the genetic modifications used to seal humanity had left traces in the alien species' own DNA. The evolution field was designed to target those traces, forcing the alien crews to experience rapid genetic changes. Within minutes, the crews of enemy ships were no longer able to operate their own technology. Their bodies were changing in ways that made their current civilization impossible to maintain. They were being forced to evolve or die. Admiral, Colonel Hayes reported, enemy fleet is in complete disarray. Most ships are dead in space. The few that are still functional are trying to retreat. Grace felt no satisfaction in the victory. This wasn't a battle in any conventional sense. It was an execution, carried out with technology that violated every principle of warfare she had once believed in. Cease fire, she ordered. Open a channel to any enemy ships still capable of communication. Several alien faces appeared on the screen, all showing signs of the forced evolution. Vexthara was among them, but its appearance had changed dramatically. Its skin had darkened, and its eyes now showed a depth of understanding that hadn't been there before. "Do you understand now?" Grace asked quietly. "We understand," Vexthara replied, its voice different, more thoughtful. "We see what we have become, what we chose to remain, while others grew beyond us." Dr. Brooks stepped forward. "The genetic changes you're experiencing aren't permanent. They can be reversed. But you need to make a choice. Will you continue trying to maintain your old order, or will you accept that the galaxy has moved beyond it?" Another alien appeared on the screen, one Grace recognized as a Kithric commander. "Admiral Parker, what do you want from us?" Grace felt the weight of godhood pressing down on her. The power to reshape entire civilizations was in her hands now. She could force the galaxy to accept human dominance, could remake every species in humanity's image, could become the very tyrants that had justified sealing her people away. Or she could choose a different path. "We want what we've always wanted," she said finally. "The right to exist as ourselves. The right to grow and explore and become whatever we're capable of becoming. And we want the same rights for every other species in the galaxy, even after what we did to you?" Vexthara asked. "Especially because of what you did to us," Grace replied. "You taught us what it feels like to have our nature suppressed, our potential limited, our future stolen. We won't do that to others." Over the following months, the galaxy began to transform. The awakened humans didn't conquer in the traditional sense. Instead, they shared their evolved technology freely, helping other species overcome the limitations that had kept them stagnant for millennia. Dr. Brooks established research centers where alien scientists could work alongside humans to understand the new technologies. Ben Rodriguez designed evolution fields that could be controlled precisely, allowing species to grow at their own pace rather than being forced to change. Colonel Hayes became the architect of a new galactic defense network, one designed to protect all species rather than maintain the dominance of a few. The fortress worlds that humanity had built became safe havens for any species seeking to escape oppression or limitation. Jake Morrison, now serving as humanity's chief diplomat, worked to establish the new Galactic Accord. Unlike the old Council, which had been dominated by elder races, the Accord gave every species an equal voice in galactic affairs. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. The children born after the awakening were different from their parents. They possessed all the enhanced abilities of the awakened generation, but without the anger and pain that had driven the transformation. They were what humanity could become when power was balanced with wisdom. Grace Parker, now recognized as humanity's first true galactic leader, stood in her office on Earth, looking out at a sky filled with ships from dozens of different species. The war gods had awakened, but they had chosen to be gods of protection rather than conquest. "Admiral," Amy Walsh said, entering the office with a communication tablet.